how much should losing Nico Iamaleava affect Tennessee's win total or title odds in gambling markets? And I'm going to say a lot, a little, not at all. You guys can vote on that right now before we dive in. Let's get to a little bit of this day in Tennessee sports history. And on this day in Tennessee sports history, it's a happy birthday to Eric Parker. Don't know if you guys remember Eric Parker. He was a punt returner for Tennessee and a receiver, by the way, from 98 to 2001 from Shorewood, Illinois. Eric Parker was born on April the 14th, 1979. He was a very good punt returner, too. Ended up enjoying a 7-year career in the NFL, first with the Texans and then with the Chargers. No, 6 years. It was a 6-year NFL career. It was first picked by the Texans, but ended up playing his whole career with the Chargers from 2002 to 2007. And was a very effective punt returner, too, honestly. A special teams guy. He was a very good threat. And the NFL, his best year was 2005 when he had 57 catches for 725 yards and 3 touchdowns. But he also had 4 touchdowns, 690 yards and 4 touchdowns in 2004. Those 2 years, he really stood out. Also had 659 yards with no touchdowns in 06. So a happy birthday to Eric Parker. He was part of that collection of receivers where he and Bobby Graham were the slot receivers when Dante Stallworth and Kelly Washington were the wideouts for Casey Clausen and that offense with Jason Witten and Travis Stevens in 2001. A loaded team. Before we get to our final topic, portions of the program brought to you by Work Trucks. We're all about trucks that are actually available, trucks that help you maximize your products maximize your profits by having the right work vehicle now. Time is money. The perfect work vehicle doesn't break down and has all the space to carry what you need. That's what Work Trucks is intent on offering, while other dealerships just can't do it. Contracting is about time. Work Trucks saves you time with less back and forth trips and trucks that pass the highest standards to be put to work. The process is also quick and easy when choosing a vehicle for work trucks, cargo vans, utility body trucks with the nap hide work bodies installed, pickup trucks of all sizes, and anything special like cranes or dump trucks. Work Truck supplies vehicles to people just like you and get you back on the road tomorrow. No dealership runaround. If you're a contractor, you need to know Work Trucks, and that's a fact. Service industry, remember Work Trucks. Work Trucks carries the trucks that your business has to have. You need Work Trucks. Clinton Highway in Knoxville and in downtown Birmingham. For the entire inventory, go online to worktrucksllc.com. Worktrucksllc.com with an X. Why risk chancing your future and business on the wrong piece of equipment that burns your time? Worktrucksllc.com. Work Trucks also will work to make sure that you have the perfect vehicle you have to have. They'll even find a perfect truck, outfit it, and make sure it fits your needs to a T. Work Trucks with an X, LLC.com, WorkTrucksLLC.com. Proud supporters of the Tennessee Vols. We wrap up today's show talking about gambling odds, baby, because I don't have a gambling problem. I'm kidding. I'm not kidding. I really don't have a gambling problem, guys. I promise. Tennessee football's gambling odds have taken a hit because of the departure of Nico Iamaleava. Over the weekend, Nico Iamaleava leaving torched Tennessee's odds in multiple ways. We're going to start with their futures, okay? Tennessee's win total since the start of the year was set at 9.5. It's now dropped a game to 8.5. That's actually kind of significant. They think Nico's at least worth a game. More importantly than that, their SEC title odds have dropped to +7. I'm sorry, not to +700. It's worse than that. Pulling this up now, have dropped to +1,400 on FanDuel. Tennessee is now Texas, Georgia, Alabama, Ole Miss, LSU, Texas. Tennessee is now 7th. Has the 7th best SEC title odds at +1,400, behind Texas, Georgia, Alabama, Ole Miss, LSU, and Texas A&M. Before then, they were tied with Alabama for 3rd at +700. By dropping to +1,400, Alabama's actually moved up to +500. Georgia is number 2 at +370. Texas is number 1 at +250. So Tennessee's title odds are now behind Texas, Georgia, Alabama, Ole Miss, LSU, and Texas A&M. Even a bigger story, their national title odds have really taken a dip. Now, to be fair, I'm going to say this. Tennessee's national title odds, they were the 8th best to win it all at the beginning of the offseason at +1,800. They have now dipped to the 12th best to win it all. Okay, so they were +1,800 at the beginning of the year. They've now dipped to the 12th best at +3,100. Ahead of them, Ohio State, Texas, Georgia, Oregon, Penn State, Notre Dame, Alabama, Clemson, LSU, Ole Miss. Actually, they're the 14th best, excuse me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. No, the 12th. And then Michigan. Okay. So Ohio State, Texas, Georgia, Oregon, Penn State, Notre Dame, Alabama, Clemson, LSU, Ole Miss, Michigan, and then Tennessee has the 12th best title odds at plus 3,100. Now, here's where that is a big deal. Let me go through the list of teams ahead of Tennessee in the title odds. Ohio State, Big Ten. Texas, SEC. Georgia, SEC. Oregon, Big Ten. Penn State, Big Ten. Notre Dame, Independent. Alabama, SEC. Clemson, ACC. LSU, SEC. Ole Miss, SEC. Michigan, Big Ten. Here's why that's a big deal. There are 5 automatic bids for conference champions. I just named 3. So if Tennessee is the 12th best title odds, they're 2 spots out of the college football playoff because 2 other conference champions have to get automatic bids. They went from predicted to make the college football playoff based on Vegas odds to now not favored to make the college football playoff because of those other 2 automatic bids. There are not 2 others have to get in. At this point, those other 2, by the way, there's nobody beyond the SEC, ACC, or Big Ten until you get all the way down. The first team not in any of those conferences is Arizona State at plus 12,000 for title odds. And then you go to BYU at plus 15,000. But once you get out of the Big 12, the first team is Boise State at plus 25,000. So theoretically, Arizona State and Boise State would be the other 2 playoff teams. It's exactly what they were this past year. How big of a deal is this? Well, obviously, it's not a big deal. Vegas doesn't win games. Teams win games. But Vegas has the biggest stake in who is winning, and they are putting a lot into the idea of Nico Iamaleava being gone. Now, here's the good news for Tennessee. Vegas overreacted with Nico Iamaleava last year. Because of his play in the first half of Tennessee's season-opening win against Chattanooga, his Heisman odds shot up to 3rd. And then by October, no one considered him even a contender for the Heisman, even when Tennessee was still undefeated. So it's not the biggest deal that their Vegas odds have dropped. As far as teams ahead of Tennessee, let's start with the national championship odds. Ohio State, no issue there. Ohio State deserves to be ahead of Tennessee. Texas, they are bringing in a new quarterback. Texas is kind of where Tennessee was last year. The difference is because they only had 1 loss and went a little further in the playoff, getting Arch Manning to start versus Tennessee going from an 8-14 to start Nico. They're going to have more height because they were better before their new highly touted starter came in and Arch Manning. So I get Texas. I wouldn't have them second though. Georgia at 3rd. Georgia is plus 700. By the way, Georgia, Carson Beck. We'll talk about this tomorrow, but Nico Iamaleava, Carson Beck, which departure was more shocking in the SEC? That's a topic for Tuesday, actually, because everybody's high on Georgia, but, it's not like they didn't deal with the same type of departure at quarterback that Tennessee just dealt with. But Georgia plus 700, 3rd. I kind of agree. They're loaded with talent. Oregon tied for 3rd at plus 700. I get it. They have talent, too, and they just went undefeated, and the only reason they lost their first playoff game is because they played Ohio State, who was on a mission to win the national title. Penn State at 5th plus 800. Look, if you want to give Penn State better college football playoff odds than Tennessee, I'm with you. I don't, because they're going to have an easier path, but I can't sit there and say you should give them better title odds than Tennessee. I don't think that Tennessee should be all the way down at plus 3,100 with Penn State at plus 800. Notre Dame plus 1,200. I understand that. They played in the title game and actually put up a fight for a little while in the title game. Alabama plus 1,400. I understand that. I'm a little higher on Alabama, even, believe it or not. I think Kalen DeBoer's system is going to work out. Clemson plus 1,400. No, Clemson ain't winning the national title. Even if Cade Klubnik has figured it out, I just don't think Clemson's good enough anymore. They are taking a step back as a program. They are a much better bet to make the college football playoff than Tennessee because they'll just win the ACC, but they're not going to win the title. LSU plus 1,800. I understand that. Garrett Nussmeier now, they have a better quarterback situation than Tennessee. Ole Miss plus 2,500. Lane Kiffin has got his guy quarterback. I think many people now believe in Lane Kiffin more than Tennessee. Michigan at plus 2,800. I'd have Tennessee above Michigan. I would. I'd have Tennessee above Michigan just based on last year, and we don't know where Michigan is dealing with. Now, as far as the SEC title goes, excuse me real quick. Texas, I get. Georgia, I get. Alabama, I get. Ole Miss, I get. LSU, yeah. Now, here's the rub. Tennessee's SEC title odds are lower than Texas A&M's, who's at plus 1,200. But they have a better chance to win the national title than Texas A&M. That's kind of interesting, guys. Mike Elko, I do believe, is going to take a step forward with Texas A&M. I believed in him as a hire from the start, even though he made some decisions last year that I didn't think was capable because I thought he was a smart coach as a Ivy League grad. But at the same time, I still believe in what he's building at Texas A&M, and they are going to load up on talent. So I think Mike Elko and Texas A&M will be a solid pickup. Now, as far as 9.5, or we'll have them as a solid program. As far as the 9.5 to 8.5 win drop, looking at Tennessee's schedule last year or this year, look, Tennessee in their 2 playoff run year so far under Josh Heupel have dropped a game that they shouldn't have dropped. There's the Columbia collapse in 2021, and then there was the Arkansas game last year. Now, with that in mind, the 9.5 win total before Nico, Syracuse, ETSU, UAB, Arkansas, Oklahoma, New Mexico State, and Vanderbilt, I think were all circled wins. Those are all home games or neutral site games against teams they would be favored to beat. I think there were 9.5 comes from, and then Kentucky on the road because you never picked Tennessee to lose to Kentucky. I think the 4 toughest games for Tennessee the whole time are Alabama, Florida, and Georgia. The 3 gimmies, largely because they have to go to Alabama and to Florida. They always struggle at Florida, and Florida's going to be better this year. Georgia speaks for itself, and then Alabama playing at Alabama speaks for itself. The 9.5 was based on whether or not they beat Florida. That's where it got 9.5. Now it's down to 8.5. Here's the thing. 8.5 maybe should have been the set anyway, because you don't know if they're going to beat Florida, but you also don't know if they're going to drop a game they shouldn't drop, i.e. at Mississippi State. After all, they dropped a game they shouldn't have dropped last year at Arkansas. They dropped a game they shouldn't have dropped 2 years ago, 3 years ago at South Carolina. That seems to be a rub for this program under Josh Heupel. So moving from 9.5 to 8.5 isn't shocking. It may be actually a little shocking that they weren't at 8.5 already. That shows a lot of respect that they have for Nico Iamaleava. But keeping it at 8.5 shows a level of respect that they have for this program, quite honestly, that they think a 9-3 season is still very much on the table. So, look, I don't think Tennessee is completely out of the running for anything. And look, all of this could change based on who they land at quarterback too. If they go the transfer portal route and Josh Heupel was all in on this year, they could get somebody even better. We don't know how that's going to work out. But I think in general, we obviously have to consider the fact that Tennessee has 3 circle toss-up games this year, and they have a game, and there's a game somewhere that they could drop because that's what they could always do. That's where you have 4 potential losses. They have 4 possible losses, I think. And I think 10-2 is probably their ceiling, but that's where you get the 8.5 versus 9.5 and Nico making a difference. I think Vegas is totally fair on that. I don't think Syracuse will be the problem at the beginning, even though Syracuse does have a good program. Fran Brown's running a very good program now, and they have their starter against Tennessee. I don't think Syracuse is the problem. That's something that we have to point out. But I do think in general, Syracuse and Tennessee, I think Tennessee could drop a game that they shouldn't drop somewhere. So we're going to kind of see how that plays out. The poll question, how much should losing Nico Iamaleava affect Tennessee's win total and title odds in gambling markets? A lot say 25% say a lot, 59% say a little, 16% say not at all. That is crazy. So if Tennessee does make the playoffs this year, here's one. If Tennessee does make the playoffs, is Josh Heupel coach of the year? Who knows? There is a lot to say about it if Tennessee is able to somehow make the playoffs, given everything that just happened. I will say that's it. I don't think that's going to happen, but Tennessee has a lot they could still play for. This team has a lot to still be excited about. And I think people were starting to get more excited about the future with Georgia McIntyre or somebody like that than Nico Iamaleava anyway, because everybody's excited about the backup quarterback and the future quarterbacks. That's just the nature of college football, guys. And now Tennessee gets to have a little bit more fun handling all that. So this is all very, very, very telling. And I have to say that the way this is all played out is kind of interesting, but it's obviously a very unique day in college football.